There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, and joining us, it's been a while. We've had him on Darkness Radio numerous times. His first visit here with us now on Beyond the Darkness. We have Josh Gates joining us. His new series, miniseries, Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials, just premiered last Wednesday, October 4th. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, but check your local listings and times for times in your area, and I'm sure, being the Travel Channel, they'll replay it a million times. This was such a cool series to kick off, and joining us right now, Josh Gates. Josh, thanks a lot for coming on this evening.
Thrilled to be here, man. Great to chat with you.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you. Boy, you were on Destination Truth for a number of years on the Sci-Fi Channel. You left that in a small respite, a little bit of chance to catch your breath and live a little bit of life, and then back to the grind now with Expedition Unknown and getting a chance to go out and check out new mysteries and parts of history that a lot of us never knew about. I want to know what kind of brought you back to your roots, like with the Destination Truth feel of more of the paranormal angle and taking a look at a hunt for extraterrestrials.
Well, look, I loved making Destination Truth, and that was really a show for folks listening who aren't familiar with it. That was really more in that kind of paranormal, cryptozoological sandbox. We were looking at creature stories and really kind of far-flung paranormal stories from around the world. And Expedition Unknown is a show that looks, I think, at kind of a broader palette of mysteries, right? So we're looking for archaeological mysteries, buried treasure, lost cities, things like that. I think I really was excited to do that kind of stuff after Destination Truth because it was, we would travel to places around the world doing some paranormal story, and I would hear about some vanished treasure or some lost explorer, and I thought, man, that's such a cool story. I wish I could do that, but we were kind of hemmed in on that show. Like, we really could only do kind of that narrow band of stuff. And so now that we're going into our fourth season of Expedition Unknown,
wow.
The few times that we've kind of put a toe in the water and said, what if we went back and did a little bit of the kind of ooga booga stuff, which I love. I mean, I love doing the paranormal stuff. And so Hunt for Extraterrestrials is this great chance to kind of put a toe back in and look at, stuff that maybe we would have looked at more on Destination Truth.
I want to tell you, when you sent me the press release on this, we're buddies. I love hanging out with you, getting to know you. I loved the shows that you've been a part of. But looking at Extraterrestrials is something that I've always held very close to my heart for, I think it's such a fascinating aspect of who we are, where we've come from, maybe where we will be in the future. And I know a lot of people do it with this kind of tongue-in-cheek action of, playing the X-Files theme and kind of already desensitizing it before they even get involved. And when I heard you were going to do a 4-episode arc, I was a little concerned. I'm like, gosh, I love the work you do on here. I'm hoping this is taken, seriously. And man, I gotta be honest with you. Out of all of the shows I've watched over the last 10 years about UFOs, this was one of my favorite new episodes to watch. And I'm not just doing that, we're saying that because we're buddies, but I love the fact that you brought Josh Gates that I love watching on TV. You got the tongue-in-cheek and the fun attitude, but never disrespectful to the topic at hand or the people that are involved in the stories. And for people that don't know, again, the series just kicked off last Wednesday. Tonight is the second episode in the series, and it's kind of asking mankind's eternal question, are we alone in the universe? And Josh has set out on a 50,000-mile multi-continent quest to find the answer in Travel Channel's spellbinding new 4-part series, Expedition Unknown: Hunt for Extraterrestrials. Again, began last week. It'll be every Wednesday. And there were some really excellent standout points in this first episode. And then what I loved about it was, you get done with it and you're left with this, oh man, now I got to wait another week. But you've got a follow-up show that comes on right afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. So each week we're doing a 1-hour roundtable show after the main episode, kind of a Talking Dead style, chat with my crew, with a UFO expert. James Fox is with us, and we'll have some special guests on in subsequent weeks as well. And really, it's about digging a little deeper into this stuff, maybe talking about some topics that we didn't get to in the show. I think for me, one of the frustrating parts about making this 4-part special is how much is out there to talk about. There are so many really cool cases. There are so many really interesting people that having to pick and choose, even for a 4-part special, which seems like a lot of airtime, it was like you couldn't fit everything in. So the after show is an awesome way for us to bring some new content in, that stuff that totally could have been in the mainline show. We just had to pick and choose what to put there.
Right. And that's what I love so much about the follow-up show was you kind of even go back. Now, I don't have to necessarily wait a full week to find out what your thoughts were on what we just saw. You guys are encapsulating this episode as a standalone, and here's what we can tell you about what happened behind the scenes of this episode. And you get a couple of funny scenes, but you get some really interesting and intriguing information on this. And one of the parts I thought was great, and I think why you and I have become friends over the years of doing this is that we're kind of in that same mindset of, we're skeptical believers. I'm probably a little bit more willing to believe in this than you are. And with good reason. You certainly have to be a lot more decisive with what you present and how you present yourself. But when you stood in Houston at Mission Control and watching kind of your awe and reaction, and did I catch a tear streaming down one of your cheeks during that scene, Gates?
Oh, yeah. I could barely keep it together. I mean, look, first of all, I appreciate the kind words about the show. And I think the reason that I do have a real reverence for the material is it means a lot to me. I'm a geek, I am a card-carrying nerd, for sure. I grew up addicted to science fiction. I'm a total Trekkie. I think I've probably seen every episode of Star Trek. I love Star Wars. I was a huge sci-fi reader. I was obsessed with Ray Bradbury. I love this stuff. And so for me, I really wanted to go and tackle this question in a way that is fun but is also respectful. But going to NASA for me was like my head exploded. It was I just couldn't believe that we were there. And then to go on the floor of Mission Control, it was just like it was an out-of-body experience.
And not only did you get to go to the current Mission Control, but you got to walk the control center where all the original Apollo and Gemini missions were launched from, right? Including that was the room that the famous quote, Houston, we have a problem. I mean, you were right there in that room. Was it, even though, we're not talking about ghosts in this aspect, could you almost feel, was it palpable, that sense in that room?
Completely palpable. And they have this room like a time capsule from the old Apollo and Gemini missions, and you walk in this room, and a lot of the panels are still wired and lit up, and they have the screens going, and you can almost squint and see, people sitting at these stations and hear, Jim Lovell from Apollo 13 or Armstrong or Aldrin or these guys. I mean, it just took my breath away. And in fact, in the show, I did a kind of a 20, 30-second little walk across the room where I basically said, hey, this room has seen a lot of history. It's a really important place. And then in the after show, we actually showed that it took me about 10 takes to get through that because I kept choking up. Every time I tried to say it, I just came to a full stop because I was going to burst into tears. And so my whole crew is sitting there. And half of them are like, I've never seen this from me. They're like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you don't get it. You don't get, I've got like a couple of like millennials on my crew. I got a guy on my crew who he doesn't know anything if it happened before 1990. And he's like, what is wrong? It's like, you don't get it, man. This room is a temple. It's just the magnitude of being there was crazy.
And not only that, you get a chance to phone and speak to current astronauts out on the International Space Station. And I don't want to give anything away, but folks, they reveal some information That's very alarming and disarming from just what it's like to have to be up there doing that. But were you interested with the fact that, I mean, you're talking to three people who've been up there for a very long time, and again, NASA and the space agencies and the government behind this, they don't like to even start to process the idea of UFOs, nor do they want to tackle it in a public forum. Were you surprised at the candor of the crew and the openness of NASA to let you in, knowing what this show was about?
Yeah. I mean, well, so first of all, a little backstory. NASA was not very receptive when we first reached out to them. They get a lot of PR requests. They heard extraterrestrials in the title. They were like, I don't know about this. We kept trying to assure them that it was really going to be respectful, that we wanted to go and celebrate the space program and look at the Webb telescope and all the cool stuff that they've got in the pipeline. And they were like, yeah, I don't know. And I kept saying to my team, we've got to go to NASA. We cannot do a 4-hour show on extraterrestrials and not visit the heart of the American space program. Like, I kept telling them, please press them, please press them. And so these two women who worked there in the PR department, we finally got routed to, and they were big fans of the show. And that made all the difference. These two went to bat for us, and they said, you should let these guys in. They'll definitely do something that'll be interesting and respectful. So they were our golden ticket. I think without them, we would not have been there. And then when they let us on then we weren't sure if we were going to get on the floor of Mission Control. It was very like, well, we'll see what the astronauts are doing, and it depends on their schedule and, you know, whether or not they're fixing something or there's some emergency happening up there. So they said, okay, it's going to happen, and they were really clear with me. They were like, look, you're going to have like 5 minutes with them. Do not talk about little green men. Do not, you know, like they were clear that I had to be respectful with them. And I got on the phone. I was shaking, you know, talking to these three. And though within a minute or so, I started to realize that, like, they were really relaxed. And they were, I mean, this is like, I'm all tense because I'm talking to people on a space station. This is where they live and work. Like, to them, this is like another Tuesday, right? Like, they're not feeling the weight of this moment the way I am. So within a couple minutes, I just very kind of respectfully, as kind of easy as I could phrase it, said, look, what do you think about the existence of life in the universe? You know, not saying, hey, have you ever seen a, you know, like a Martian stuck to the window outside the space station? But what do you think about this? And they were totally open about it. They were complete believers. They were totally on board with the idea that there must be life in the universe somewhere. They were total supporters of that theory. And they also were really funny. Like, the longer I talked to them, the more that we were joking around. And what was supposed to be a 5-minute conversation ran about 10 minutes. And you know, it was a lot more relaxed than I thought it was going to be. Man,
your roaming charges have to be brutal.
Brutal. I mean, well, to me, the most amazing thing about it, like the most emblematic thing of NASA is, like, I'm in this room where they are literally operating a space station that is orbiting the planet. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the most high-tech thing you could possibly imagine. And yet to talk to them, you have to pick up this black telephone receiver from like 1965. Like everything in there is super high-tech except for the phone, which looks like it was like taken off of like Kennedy's desk.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was funny too, because you're kind of like on the deck of the Enterprise, looking at the big screen, speaking to them, and
totally.
Yeah, you think an intercom system, something, but no, you've got it's that really old, archaic looking telephone handset that you're speaking in.
And everybody around is wearing those like cool headsets,
right?
Like the cools, but no, like when you want to talk to them, you have to pick up the old rotary phone.
But that's pretty cool because you got to hold that phone. You got to speak to him. And boy, I bet when your son is a little bit older and really grabs the impact of the fact that astronaut said hello to him, that's going to be pretty impressive, Dad. I don't know how many other... Yeah, you made the rest of us fathers look like real putzes now. I want you to know that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to bank some real dad points off that in a few years. But,
definitely. By the way, congratulations. I think it's been a while since we've had you on the show. Congratulations. And did I see online that there might be another Gates on its way?
We get another one on the way. Yeah, we're completing the set, so we're going to have two of them. So we're really excited about that.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's you know, to be able to chat with those guys in the space station and have them say hi to my son, I mean, that was my brain was already melting, but that was pretty much the just fried me completely. But the whole thing was just so surreal. Like, there's no time delay. I mean, I don't know how they're routing that call. I guess they just have they own a satellite, which is they're just going straight to the station with it. But it just feels fake. You feel like they're in the next room or something. It's too perfect. It's like you can talk to them. They can hear you. They can talk back. It's all happening in real time. And yet they're going 17,000 miles an hour whipping around the planet.
That is interesting, and especially when you mentioned the fact it almost feels fake, like they could be in the other room, and that's been a huge angle for a lot of conspiratorial people, and which has always frustrated me. I think there's too much to prove, and you've got other agencies from around the world that have been able to look at the moon and see the garbage we left behind, our rover and flags and things up there, and trust me, I think those countries would love to bust us if we were faking something. So.
Big time. I mean, the moon conspiracy thing always bugged me, too, because it really is, probably the greatest achievement of our species, right? Like, it's the coolest, hardest thing we've ever done. And so to try to knock the legs out from under that and say that it was all a hoax is just such a bummer. Furthermore, the amount of people, I think for me the most compelling thing yes, you're right. You can see the stuff that's up there, so that kind of shuts it down immediately. But for me, the thing I always found the most compelling is that 250,000 people worked on the Apollo program. The amount of people that built every single piece of that thing, that monitored them, that built all the equipment and wiring and the tracking, all of it, you couldn't get 250,000 people to agree on anything. The idea that there's this hoax and that all these folks are somehow telling this same story, it's crazy, right? It's impossible. It would be harder to hoax it than to just go to the moon.
Expedition Unknown Hunt for Extraterrestrials, second episode airs today on the Travel Channel. I'm sure you can find it on your on-demand service for the first episode. Make sure you watch these episodes, and do us a favor, folks, something I don't know if you know about, but when you DVR these shows, it really helps these shows in the long run, the quicker you can watch them after you DVR them. So please make sure that you watch the show. Don't just DVR and have it on there. Check it out. I promise, if you're fascinated like I am about space, about the possibility of aliens, UFOs, and other things, you're going to absolutely love this series. It is gripping. It is really intelligent. It's fun. And you get to see things like we were just talking about. NASA let you in the door, Gates. You got to talk to astronauts on this episode. And to me, that is almost as important as the message that you're trying to get to about the possibilities. I mean, the fact that at this point in history, NASA's starting to come around and open to this. Was there, when you went to ask that question about what do you guys think about the possibility of life somewhere in this universe, were you kind of looking out of the corner of your eyes to see if you were about to get escorted out of that room?
Oh, yeah, I was waiting for somebody to tackle me for sure. Guys in dark suits.
Right.
But no, the astronauts on the space station were so receptive and so open to it. And I think you're right. I think you're tapping into something that is real, which is that I think the culture of NASA is changing a bit, because one of the things that NASA, I think, has never been fully able to capitalize on after the Apollo era is how cool they are. What they do is really neat. And I think that, somewhere in the shuttle era, we kind of got used to these really cool machines going up into space, and we kind of took the shuttle launches for granted. And I think we kind of forgot that what these guys are doing is super cool. And I think NASA's starting to get hip to the social media and to the public outreach, and to really kind of get people hooked again on what they're doing, because it's super badass. They just have to embrace the PR, and I think that they're really doing that.
Well, what's fascinating to me too is you got a chance to see the beginnings of the new telescope, which is going to replace Hubble. And Hubble has been an amazing eye to the universe for us. And this new telescope is going to make the old one look like dial-up, right? And you're going to get even more crisp, further images of space, to the point where they're looking for the beginnings of space and time. They're looking through the lens of time travel to find out our origins and our beginnings. That's pretty freaking incredible.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the directors of the Webb Telescope program, and he was sort of explaining to me, like he's talking to an idiot, because he is, how this thing works. And right. I'm standing there trying to comprehend what he's saying, and he's basically saying that one of the things this telescope is going to do is it's going to be able to look at the very first light of the universe. So after this Big Bang, after whatever happens, there is this initial explosion of light, and it's going to be able to look right at that moment, so the beginning of the universe. And I'm sort of sitting there nodding and going, and I'm thinking, I have no idea how human beings built this thing that is going to do this. That's impossible. I can't put together something from IKEA. You know what I mean? The fact that these guys have built this thing, they're going to shoot it in a rocket up into space. It's going to assemble itself like a transformer in space, and then it's going to be able to look at the first light of the universe, which is to say it's going to be able to look as far away as possible in the universe. That's crazy.
And here's the really weird part about that for me, and again, the excitement of the possibilities of what we're coming into with our technology, that this telescope will see to the beginning of our time. And I'm talking in the universe, in all of history, it's going to be able to see that. How much further are we going to be able to see 20 years from now with a new telescope?
Right.
I mean, could they see, is the void the beginning, or was there something before this? It'll be an intriguing part of this story, and I thought that was such a great part of this. So for all of you sci-fi nerds, you should watch this series simply for the fact of relearning what we've been taking for granted. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the fact that, we became almost desensitized to it with all the shuttle missions. And, had the moon lunar landing been shot in HD, right, we'd be looking at a different aspect of it. And I think that's what they've missed in their opportunities here, is that they should have made one more jaunt to the moon with our current technology to be able to show higher resolution video and photographic evidence of our journey to the moon and what it's like. And if that would have been our last one, that would have been a great way to hang your hat up and say, okay, we've been there, done that. We now even have better footage than we've ever had, and a clearer look at our planet from this, marble hanging outside our back door. And then let's move to Mars and move on to the other planets as we go along. I think that's the one mishap they've got, that they didn't exploit that aspect of it to reinvigorate and excite people, because my kids don't even like to watch black and white classic movies, let alone grainy, right, popping footage. And you try to show them the first steps on the moon, and they're like, okay, yawn, yawn, yawn. What else have we got? And we want so much more now. I think that would be, hopefully that is something that, even if it's one of these Virgin Atlantic space crews or so eventually gets up there, I think that's going to help definitely reinvigorate the imaginations of the world and really get excited about space exploration and the possibilities again. Now, I want to get back into the fact that this is, the hunt for extraterrestrials. That's a pretty big topic to throw out there. But the fact that you come into this series a skeptical, interested party, and I say that because you and I have been to many conferences, and we've heard many people on both sides of the UFO spectrum, from people that are completely believable like Travis Walton to some really hairpin people who you're pretty sure are just trying to grab some money and get some entertainment value out of it. And there's a reason to be a skeptic in this kind of interest in research. But man, I got to tell you, Josh, for people that are on the fence post, your first episode alone gave enough possible evidence from credible sources that have to make you rethink this whole thing that, no, it's impossible, or it never happened, or it never will happen. I mean, for God's sakes, you went to a governmental office and they sat you down and showed you footage of their government helicopter capturing something that they cannot explain, doing things that they cannot comprehend. How was that as an eye-opener for you going into this entire expedition?
I think for me, I really went in open-minded, but definitely skeptical. And so when it comes to the question of extraterrestrials, there's kind of two different categories, right? There's the first category, which is there life somewhere in the universe besides us? That's the first question. And I really have come out the other side of this special 100% a believer in that. I just the people that we spoke to both at NASA in the first episode, and there's other folks that we'll be chatting with along the way, the evidence that there are other worlds that are habitable or potentially habitable in the universe is so overwhelming now, and we're finding these planets that could support life at an incredible rate now. And so I am now totally in the there's life in the universe camp.
Right.
Now, the second question, has it come here? Has it come to visit us? Is it flying around? Has it abducted people? And that's a much stickier question, right? Because my logical brain says, I don't buy this. Like, A, why would they do this? Why would you, the amount of technology it would take to go all the way across the universe to visit somebody else, why would you do that? And then for years just sort of hide in the shadows? And also, you know, why isn't, like, there better evidence, and is there better evidence, and all those questions, right? So I definitely felt like I wasn't sure I was going to feel convinced on that front. But, man, I saw some stuff while making the show that really spun me. This video in Chile, as well as other videos that we're going to be looking at, you know, these really compelling eyewitness accounts with video that are really mysterious. You know, Chile, their government has a branch of their government that is devoted to UFO sightings, something that we totally do not have here in the States. They have a very open policy about it. And when you ask them why do you do this? Why do you maintain a government office that does this? They say, well, because, you know, we've got millions of people a year flying through our airspace in commercial jets. If people are seeing stuff up in the sky, we want to know what it is. We want to know what's there. It's a public safety issue. So that was really refreshing, you know. And then to see the video that they showed me, I mean, it looks like, I don't know what. It doesn't look like a plane. It doesn't look like a helicopter. The Navy pilots that were shooting the video have no idea what it is, and those guys are seasoned experts. So it left me with a million more questions than I thought I would have.
Let me ask you this. When watching that, and I don't want to give too much away because I want people to see it for themselves. This was in the first episode that aired last Wednesday. But didn't the question cross your mind, and maybe it did and it just didn't make the episode, if this was Chile's naval pilots that saw this, why did they not approach this instead of just shooting it from a distance? Now, it wasn't pinging on radar, but they were catching it on thermal camera. Why not approach this for a clearer view, possibly, especially when it begins doing something which I would think might lead you to believe that this could be dangerous and we should probably approach and try to see what's going on with a clearer view, or at least get a full visual of this. Did you ask them why that wasn't?
Yeah, I did. I had the same question. And I think there's a couple things about the video that is a little bit misleading. One of the things is it's farther away than it seems. Mm-hmm. These guys are using some pretty tactical equipment on board this helicopter to stabilize and shoot this thing. So they're not really right up on top of it. And one of the things that also transpired during the flight is they're asking, you know, their superiors on the ground, you know, is there a helicopter in this airspace? Is there a commercial flight in this airspace? And so they're on like an observation mode, sort of trying to get because I think their first assumption is, oh, this must be some sort of known aircraft that's in this space. And then by the time they're kind of realizing that, no, this is not something that is meant to be there, there's no record of this, it vanishes from view. It just sort of takes off. And so they end up at the end of their flight having made this observation and not really knowing what the hell it is they just saw.
I was left watching that. I mean, I thought that was pretty impressive. I was even more thrown by your reaction because you were looking at a much clearer shot than I think even we were on TV. I'm curious
and I've heard people try to debunk it, and there's people have made the rounds online about it. People have said, oh, it's a commercial aircraft, and people have said, oh, none of those explanations hold any water with the civil aviation and military aviation folks in Chile, because they do not believe that it's operating like either a fixed wing aircraft or a helicopter or a balloon. They don't know what it is.
Here was my other point, and I'm going to come at it from a different point of view because I'm a nerd. To me, Josh, I was curious. We've heard of many of these craft that are seen that end up being like the size of 1 or 2 football fields, sometimes as big as, you know, a 10-story building, which sounds improbable, implausible. But could when this thing, gosh, because I don't want to give it away, but when something starts to happen with this, could it be that instead of it emitting something, could it be that it's turning and we're starting to see the entire side of the craft? I mean,
I don't know. It looks to me like it's emitting something.
Okay.
I mean, to me, what's so strange about it is that for the first part of the video, you look at it and you go, that's a balloon or maybe a helicopter, though you can't see any rotors or anything, but it doesn't appear to be moving. It's very much hovering. And then suddenly it kind of changes its profile, and it's definitely on the move, and it definitely starts doing something. And then you kind of go, oh, now it kind of looks like a plane that's emitting something, that's discharging something. But the fact is, you know, other than a couple of very specialized military, you know, aircraft that can kind of fly like a helicopter and then like a Harrier that can kind of change the way it operates, there really are no aircraft that operate this way. And certainly the few that do exist would not mysteriously appear in Chilean airspace, you know, and then kind of just vanish from view. So it's a really bizarre video. I mean, to me, what's so compelling is that these experts look at it and they go, look, this is one of the 20 or 30% of things that we see a year that we can't explain at all.
Right, and they get a lot of sightings in Chile and in the airspace. And what did they say? They said that 32% they can usually explain away, or was it 32% they cannot explain away?
32% they cannot explain away.
That's huge.
It's huge, and some of those are because there isn't enough data.
Right.
It's you know, a bad video or a personal account that they can't corroborate. But a number of them are things like this video that we looked at, which just defy explanation.
Now, and I've got to know from your personal thoughts, when you sat down to look at this video and this government has opened up to you and said, yeah, fine, we'll show you this, we'll share this with you, and you start to watch it unfold. I mean, your face is priceless during this, but what is it like? I mean, afterwards, do you catch kind of a high of, oh my God, what the hell did I just see? Does it take you a while to come back down from that personally after witnessing that video? Or did you try to keep yourself journalistic?
I was super excited because I love when I see something I can't explain, because then it's just, now we've got a story cooking, right? Now it's like, whatever this is, it's a mystery, and then that makes it cool. But the other thing after I watched it that is in the show a little, but there's certainly a lot more of it, is I really wanted them to comment on it. I wanted to be like, okay, what do you think this is? And they kind of fall back on, we don't know what it is. And I go, okay, fine, you don't know what it is, so what do you think it is? And, you know, they're like government, you know, aviation folks. They just don't really play that game. They're not in the speculation game. So I wanted them to sort of say, if it isn't a plane and it isn't a helicopter, like, is it a UFO? Like, I wanted them to kind of cop to it. And of course, it's like, they're like stone-faced. They won't say it.
See, but even you mentioned that in the follow-up, in the debriefing episode, is it would be nearly impossible to give a title and to say it is alien in nature. It is truly an unidentified flying object. We all know that, sure. And that is an acceptable part. But with even that data, I mean, sure, you'd love for somebody on the record at any kind of political ranking to come forward and say, we think it's alien, but we have to define what is alien. And, you know, I know you guys kind of poke one of your guys on the show. I think it might be your camera guy who starts talking about being fourth dimensional visitors and interdimensional.
Yeah, we have one. I have two directors of photography. One of them is, super by the book, skeptical, thinks all of this is nonsense. And the other guy is like full X-Files, Ancient Aliens, like drinking he believes all of it. He believes everything you've ever heard about aliens. So when you put the two of them in a room together, it's always a fist fight. It's great.
Right. But I mean, I don't think even if you were sitting there today, Josh, and right outside your back window, you heard a vibrating and bright white lights and blue lights, and you looked out and something landed in your backyard, and without seeing anything leave the craft, you still really can't ever define that this is a craft from or extraterrestrial in origin, because we don't know what the government is capable of or other governments might be capable of. So it is going to always be this open-ended question until we watch the doors open up and the creatures come out and start giving us high signs like at the end of Close Encounters.
Right. Exactly. Right. I mean, that is
the irritating thing. Yeah.
For sure, and there are some amazing eyewitness stories that we hear later in the series, including one at a school that really, really rocked me, because I could not explain what it is that these people had seen. But at the end of it, I still come back to this same problem, which is like, okay, I believe them. I believe they saw something. I believe they went through an experience. I'm in. What did they see? I don't know. And that's the big problem.
Well, what did they see? We don't know. You'll find out more as the series progresses. We'll talk more about Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials, when we return. Episode 2 airs tonight on the Travel Channel. Check local listings and times in your area. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central for most of us. The rest of you, again, can check your local listing. Stay tuned. We've got more of the best in Paranormal Talk Radio right after this.
Beyond the darkness.
Hey, remember to set your DVRs. If you can't watch it live, you do not want to miss Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials. We did Put Your Eyes to the Skies week a few weeks ago here on Beyond the Darkness, and had a lot of you really chimed in on this and loved the different aspects of what we were able to bring to you. And as fun as that week was, this new series is really different than anything you've seen before. And what I love so much about this, our guest Josh Gates from Expedition Unknown is here. Josh, is the fact that you're going into this, you're looking at cases, but we're not necessarily revisiting old cases. We're not just rehashing Roswell or Rendlesham, although you do touch on each one of these things because they're such a huge part of this alien scale and storyline. But the fact is, you're looking at newer cases like the Chilean visitation, the UFO that they've seen. You're talking to astronauts, and that was something really compelling in this first episode, as well as you spoke to an astronaut who saw something that, as a trained observer, looked out the window, saw this, got clearance that it was no part of their craft. It wasn't a shuttle. It wasn't a booster rocket. It was nothing of theirs. And he began filming this. It was intriguing and interesting enough for him to take note, film, and photograph this thing outside of their craft. I mean, now talk to me about that. We had Joe Nickel, one of the world-renowned skeptics, on, and he tore that story apart a few years back. And, he made mistakes and he doesn't know. And to me, you don't get to be an astronaut if you're unreliable or can't trust your eyes and can't trust what it is that you're experiencing. So to just dismiss the fact that we make mistakes, maybe if I work at McDonald's, I might make a mistake, but I'm a damn astronaut.
Is that, you know, in terms of looking at these different stories, we wanted to really span the spectrum and look at things that were benchmark stories like Roswell or the Rendlesham Forest incident, and also recent sightings, things that are happening right now. And one of the things for me, as a guy who is really interested in this but was not by any means an expert in this topic before I started, is how many people there are who are really respected, educated, often high-ranking individuals who have had experiences. And so in this case, this was a sighting from the Discovery Space Shuttle, from STS-48, from an astronaut. Buzz Aldrin has said that he saw something. People like Jimmy Carter have gone on record being interested in this as a topic. Bill Clinton tried to get some of the files opened up that were kind of sealed off. There's so many people in really prominent positions of power who have either had personal experiences or kind of validated this as a topic, and that really blew me away. I really wasn't aware of that, and so for me that that kind of reframed it for me, because it made me think about it differently.
Let me ask you, kind of looking into the archival aspect of UFOs in history, there's a very famous piece of footage, and I think it's Truman, when they're asking about aliens and UFOs, he just nonchalantly kind of throws aside, yes, we're aware of the craft of the saucers, and, you know, and just kind of, do you believe that segment, have you seen that piece of video footage, I should say, first of all?
Yeah,
and do you think that's being out of context?
Covered on the show, but it is Truman. It's like something from, like, I think it's like the early 50s, where he just sort of casually talks about it like it's a thing that's happening.
Right, and he's very, and people bring to the forefront, you know, if they're out there, why don't they just land on the front steps of the White House? And a lot of people don't realize this, but in 1952, Josh, and again, for somebody that's still on the fence about not sure what they believe, there were UFOs photographed by major photographers, and thousands of people witnessed UFOs in the skies above Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, it was covered in Life magazine, and Marilyn Monroe is on the cover from 1952. If you can find that issue, I can't believe that it's not more of a cover story, but it's buried in that issue are these photographs and them talking about this. I mean, that to me is insanely compelling. You have Truman in the 50s saying, yes, we're aware of the saucers, we know about this, and then there's photographs. Why do you think that part of history seems to be just dismissed so summarily?
Well, and there are a number of interesting cases like that, where you've got a lot of people seeing something. It's kind of either openly admitted to by the military, or they kind of, like Roswell, kind of take one stance and then pivot to another stance. And look, it's things like that have both, I think, prevented the truth from being known, but also totally sparked the interest in UFOs, because it's that conspiratorial kind of thing, the fact that these incidents seem to have occurred, they seem to be covered up or pushed aside. I think that, more than anything, has fueled people's interest. I think if the government has been trying to cover something up, it's probably backfired in their face a bit, because it's only served to get people more and more interested in the topic.
You know, I love a good conspiracy like anybody, and I'm always fascinated by UFO conspiracy theorists, that these ufologists are dying, and you know, people that are really studying this are dying, and people that are digging too deeply are visited by the men in black. I often think if there's really this deep, dark-rooted conspiratorial angle, Josh Gates' show would not be on the air. Especially getting access to the sites you were going. And hearing some of those stories, did it give you any moment to pause at all to think, what if I do get somebody knocking on my door?
Right. It wasn't until we went to it's in an episode that hasn't aired yet, and it's coming up in the series. We went to the aerial school in Zimbabwe. Have you heard about this story?
No, I have not. Oh, wait. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. But go ahead.
Yeah, this is really bananas. It's this school in Zimbabwe, which is one of the largest mass UFO sightings in history. It happened in the 90s, and a bunch of students at this school, ranging from elementary age to high school aged, all saw basically an alien craft land in a field at the edge of their school, and they observed a being, a creature, get out of this craft. And this is not one kid, 3 kids, 10 kids. This is almost 100 students. And we went to the school, and we got 6 or 7 of these students back together. Many of them hadn't seen each other since the event. We spoke to one of the teachers, who's now the headmistress of the school, and got all of the old drawings and accounts that they had given. And I have to say, this event really spooked me out. It was like these kids were crying and screaming. The teachers thought, I mean, they had no idea what happened. They were culling these kids back into these classrooms. These kids were completely traumatized. And they all reported the exact same thing. They were split up into different classrooms. They were interviewed. They were asked to do drawings. They're all identical. And, you know, they said that a bunch of people in the fall. So first they said they were brought into an auditorium and they were told nothing happened. this was a mass hysteria. You guys didn't see anything. And yet the next day they said a bunch of government folks showed up and did radiation tests and, walked around the site and, these kind of men in black. And so hearing their story was really kind of unnerving.
Yeah, that's interesting to me again, because when you can look at a story that's not just Travis Walton and a couple of buddies that could have cooked up some scheme to get some popularity, some history, I know that's one of the stories that people pick on most, but you've got a bunch of people that had this exact same experience. That does really start to open you up to the possibilities of what's going on. I think the biggest problem is when you see things like this in Chile or Zimbabwe is where else would it be better if we truly did have craft like this that we wanted to test out? Where would be the best place to test it than places like that where they wouldn't be used to seeing these kind of things? We could see how the reactions of locals will be when they witness something like that. So again, kind of going on the governmental conspiracy angle that these are our craft, that seems to make sense to me as well.
Absolutely. I mean, these are incredibly remote places where, especially in Chile, where the skies are just really dark, and there just isn't a lot of infrastructure out there. That's certainly the exact kind of place that you would probably show up if you were trying to stay off the radar, as it were.
Right. You're cutting out a little bit on us. I don't know if you changed positions with your phone, but you're starting to get a little choppy.
Probably an alien abduction is about to happen, I'm guessing. That's usually the sign.
Yes, obviously. And it's getting worse as you talked about that. Let me see if I can get to, I don't know if you want to reposition or if the phone is dying on you.
Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to switch phones. Hold on 1 second.
Josh Gates, our guest tonight, as we're talking about his brand new series, mini-series, 4-part series, Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials, running every Wednesday for October. October 4th, the first episode aired last week. A great episode. And then they do a debriefing episode right afterwards. So you get actually 2 full hours of really great entertainment regarding this part of our universe and our story of where do we come from in the universe and maybe who's out there and who's watching us. You made a comment.
Dave, I am here, by the way.
Okay, good. You're back. I'm glad to hear
aliens, the aliens showed up. I waved them off.
Come back later. You're talking to Schrader. I got it. I appreciate that.
Exactly. As soon as they heard your name, they left.
Yeah, well, I can't blame them. I have that effect on a lot of people. Let me ask you this. You mentioned earlier, about the fact of why would they be lurking? Why would they kind of, if they're really from another planet or galaxy, why wouldn't they just be more upfront about it? But when you think about us, I mean, we go out of our way to not disturb things that we're investigating. You've got the Diane Fosseys, you've got the Jane Goodalls, who will go out and ingratiate themselves into the populace of the great apes, right? You've got Jacques Cousteau and other sea explorers who will not go out to disrupt necessarily, but to observe. So it only sounds familiar. It sounds like that would be the way that alien races would come here, especially if they've watched us in our history. We are a nasty little race of creatures. Our ant farm is full of fire ants that are very mean, and maybe it's better to stand back and watch than it is to try to engage, because we come off all friendly and sweet and sending up golden records of dogs barking and loving songs, but then they tap into our visual spectrum and we're blowing aliens out of the sky and alien autopsying and this kind of stuff. I would guess that might make them want to stand back and say, let's just watch for a while longer.
I mean, look, that's a fair point. That's kind of the partially the kind of Star Trek Prime Directive sort of angle of they're going to hang back. We're not ready for this. They're going to watch. And look, who's to say, I mean, I think that, to me, I have a hard time with the idea that a race is so evolved and so technologically advanced, they're able to cross galaxies to come and visit us, and then they're going to, hang out over a cornfield and, probe us. Just seems weird. But what do I know? I'm just the guy looking for UFOs, Dave.
Let me ask you this, in all honesty, Josh, if you could choose right now, there were 3 doors in front of you. Behind one of them is 100% proof that Bigfoot exists. Behind the other one would be a visitation with an honest-to-God ghost, a loved one of your very own that you could sit and visit with from the eternal plane, or to open the 3rd door and be granted access aboard a UFO and meet aliens, knowing that you'll be replaced back here on Earth safely, but, maybe a little anally probed, but who's not up for a little action? Which one would you choose?
Well, it seemed for a minute there like it was just going to be 3 choices, but now one of the choices involves anal probing. You really swayed that 3rd door. So even if there was not anal probing involved, I actually think I would take the ghost option of those 3, because as mysterious as the mysteries of the universe are, the mysteries of the afterlife and of life and death and all of that, I mean, nothing's more mysterious than that. If I could have an hour to chat with somebody from the great beyond, I think I would take that. No disrespect to aliens and no disrespect to a good anal probing, but I'm going to go with the ghost in that setup.
Yeah, I'm totally excited by the aspect of alien races. That's I went out to visit, and I've talked about it over the years on the show. Did an episode of A&E's Paranormal State, taking the kids out on a UFO hunt at Trout Lake, Washington, at the Assetti Ranch. I've seen things. It just excites me in the idea and the possibility that there are things that are watching us and that may be a part of it. And, one of the things that's really kind of intriguing about this as well, and I'm wondering if you, pardon the pun, but probe this angle as well on the series, that maybe
they're all probing.
It is. Maybe they're not alien in nature at all. A lot of these beings are, people are familiar with the term UFO, but there's also USOs, unidentified submersible objects. Could it be that these beings have been here all along? We're just coexisting with them.
Right, that's the kind of abyss angle, right? Like the ancient sort of things that have been here. Absolutely. I mean, can I ask you a question? Can I turn the tables on you in your own show?
Yeah.
What's the most compelling UFO extraterrestrial story that you've ever heard? Who's like your number one all-in, I believe this story?
I think it's a toss-up for me. It's only slightly edged out by one guy because I've had the chance to sit in front of him and speak to him and see the sincerity in his eyes. Travis Walton, to me, is kind of the quintessential story, but Betty and Barney Hill fascinate the living hell out of me. I mean, and with what they were able to see in star maps and things that they were able to show that were eventually proven to be true, that's pretty compelling information, but I didn't get a chance to see them or speak with them. But I would say, and I've talked to quite a few people that have books out there, and Whitley Strieber, and, he's more confusing and confounding to me than he is believable at this point. And I'm not saying I don't believe him, but I'm just saying he's more confusing and confounding as he seems to sway with the wind on his experiences. But Travis Walton is never yielding to his story. And the fact that the man has passed 12 lie detector tests, as have all of the people. You mentioned it earlier. It's hard to believe that somebody could keep a secret, let alone a group of 5 of them, 6 of them, and they. It
was him plus 6 guys, I think.
Right, and in his story, the Fire in the Sky story, you'd figure the jig would be up if they were trying to pull some kind of shenanigans the minute the police took the rest of them into custody and started thinking, we might have murder on our hands. These guys killed Travis Walton, left him out in the woods somewhere, and you would think that the story would start to unravel pretty quickly at that point, but these guys all stood by the story, passed multiple lie detector tests. And to me, that starts to become really compelling.
Yeah, I mean, big time. And I have to say, you and I both met Travis, and Travis actually is going to appear on the 4th show that we do in the after show. There is an interview with Travis, and it's really the first time that I've had a chance to sit down and talk to him kind of in a formal interview setting. I've heard his story. I've had the chance to meet him a bunch of times. But I sat down and talked with him, and just, said, okay, take me through it. I've heard the story, but take me through it. And as he was taking me through it, you could just see that he was kind of, for as many times as he's told the story, for as many, people that have asked him to recount the story, he was still kind of getting caught up in it and getting emotional, that there's some kind of imprint on him, some scar on him that you can, if you just sit and talk to him, you can see something happen to this guy. No question. This guy went through something.
How about you? In all of the people you've had a chance to speak to over the last decade, of doing both shows, what story stands out the most to you as probably one of the most compelling ideas that UFOs or alien life may exist?
I think I'm like-minded with you. I think Travis is one of the great stories out there. I also have to say I'm really kind of taken in by from a kind of first-hand account story. These kids at this aerial school that we interview on the show really kind of, man, I look into their eyes, and this one, I looked at this one kid and I said, any chance that what you saw was a hoax? Any chance you're mistaken about this? And this kid just looked me in the eye and just like pierced into my soul and just shook his head slowly from side to side and was like, no, I know what I saw. I know what this was. I'm also kind of taken by the Rendlesham Forest case. I think that whole story is super fascinating, and the fact that there's a number of individuals from different parts of this base who, from a height of the Cold War, U.S. Air Base in England, and these people are reporting seeing UFOs in the woods is pretty compelling stuff.
I just got back from London and England. We did a tour, and this was my second one in 2 months, and we stopped at Rendlesham both times. And there is, again, that to me, what's so fascinating is that's a site where you can actually get right to where this craft was seen. Unlike Roswell, where, it's a debris field and you can go to the town of Roswell, but it's really not even in Roswell where this story took place. It's out in the middle of a farm.
People can't even agree on where that story took place.
Right. And in Rendlesham, you've got a story that unfolds with the military and British and American military and people that have come forward that, as you said, are high-ranking, are in places of power that, this would only hurt their credibility. And they believe that they saw something alien in nature. And for you to get the chance to go there is definitely a vibe. And again, I don't know if it's simply because it's such a mecca and so many people have gone there and have imprinted it with their own energy, as we're talking woo-woo stuff, but it really was one of my highlights of both trips was to get to go there and stand right in the spot where this craft was seen, and that you had so many people that were very believable involved in the story that had nothing to gain and actually quite a bit to lose by sharing it.
A lot, yeah. I mean, a lot to lose. That's the thing that always jumps out at me about that story is that from Colonel Holt, who was the deputy base commander, to the radar operators, to the soldiers that went out into the forest, I mean, there is not any upside for these guys to tell this story. These are career military officers. This is the kind of stuff that gets you thrown out of the military, or at the very least laughed out, So these guys coming forward telling that story, it's shocking. I mean, it's just something you'd never expect from people in those positions.
Hey guys, I want to remind you real quickly, we have our Halloween for Hunger campaign going on. We do every year. Last year, our goal was $5,000. With your help, we hit $13,000 raised for Second Harvest Heartland. For every dollar we raise, that's 3 meals that you're able to supply to somebody in need right here in the heartland of America, right here in our own backyard. And with all of the tragedies that have befallen our country, this is great to know that the money that you're donating goes to help our people right here in our states, in our heartland. And please just do what you can. You can go right to darknessradio.com. Click on the Halloween for Hunger Beyond the Darkness banner at the top of the page, and you can go in and make a donation. And there is no there's no small donation that we'll accept. $1, 5, 10, 20, every dollar literally counts. Every penny of this donation goes to feed people in need, and there's never been more of a need than there is right now. So again, if you could please go make that donation, even if you only have $1 to spare and you can dig those 4 quarters out of the backseat of your car or in between your seats, that $1 will supply food for an entire day to a person in need. So please help us out. Our goal this year, $15,000. And we know between the Tom Bernard Show, Coast to Coast AM, and Beyond the Darkness, we can hit that goal with your help. With over 300,000 downloads of this episode alone, if each one of you just donated $1, we would be able to feed 300,000 people square meals for a long time. It would mean a lot to us if you could be a part of this and help give back to the communities that help us. All right. Our intrepid army of darkness, you're always asking Tim and I for advice. What's our favorite podcast? What's our favorite ghost hunting equipment? What's our favorite scary books? What's our favorite show to watch? And we've got a new one to talk to you about, Lore. It's a creepy 6-episode series on Amazon Prime Video. And Tim, you turned Beyond to the Lore podcast, which was phenomenal. And it kind of helped to inspire us for our Theater of the Mind segments that we do on Friday. And how long? You've been listening to it for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And you get some great scares from this, and that's because he covers some of the most unbelievable stories. And the scariest stories are the true ones. Amazon Prime's exclusive Lore is a chilling 6-episode anthology series from one of the executive producers of The Walking Dead and one of the executive producers from The X-Files. It's based on the podcast phenomena that has had over 70 million downloads. They've got creator and narrator Aaron Mahnke as he explores the most terrifying tales throughout history. And each of these uniquely creepy episodes, they take a myth that's rooted in historical folklore, and then they twist it, exposing timeless terrors that still haunt us today. Real life can scare you to death. Don't miss out on this. It starts this Friday, the 13th. What a better day to start a creepy show like this than Friday the 13th, Tim. Did you get a chance to see the little teaser that they sent to us?
Oh, yes, I did.
God, does this thing look good? I mean, this is unbelievable. It's this kind of a unique mixed media blend. They've done this like archival footage, animation, reenactments, and the scariest stories are true. They're really cool. Check it out for yourself. Amazon.com/lore, Lore. That's www.amazon.com/lore. You guys love what you hear on our show. Trust me, you're going to love what you see with the brand new show on Amazon Prime. Lore begins this Friday, the 13th. On Amazon Prime. Go check it out for yourself and join our ever-expanding army of creepiness. This show is going to bring the goods. That we can promise you. So maybe you're still skeptical. You're not sure what you believe, but you're open-minded to the possibility that we are not alone in this universe. Then there's a series you need to watch. Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials began last Wednesday, October 4th. It continues tonight with its second part of a 4-part series. You can check it out and probably find the other one in the on-demand service on your TVs. I'm sure you can find it on Hulu or wherever it's available to you, but check it out and watch this. It is one of the most compelling UFO and extraterrestrial documentary series I've ever had a chance to see, and I can't wait to watch as this series unfolds. And you get to hear some more stories, newer stories, and fascinating angles and aspects from people that, again, aren't trying to sell stories, aren't trying to become famous from this, and some of them are deeply traumatized and scarred by the things that they've seen. Josh Gates is the host of this new expedition, and it is fascinating. Real quickly, for people that are interested, your new series kicks off. You've got this one going right now, the special for the month of October, but the new series kicks off again in December. Is that right?
That's right. So we have 4 weeks of the extraterrestrial special, and if you missed the first week, they'll air it next week before the new premiere. So that would be 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock, I believe, Central, and then the new show that'll air tonight. So you can always catch last week's if you tune in a little bit early. And then after the UFO extraterrestrial special wraps up, We'll be back in December with our 4th season of Expedition Unknown. I can't believe we're in our 4th season. And I have to say, I mean, I'm sort of like obliged to say it's going to be great. And it really is. Like, it's my favorite season of the show so far. We're doing these really, really cool stories. Some awesome treasure hunts here in the U.S. that I knew nothing about. We're doing a big 2-part special on the Vikings. We're going to Egypt for the first time and doing some awesome Egyptian stuff. We just got back from a really incredible expedition to Ecuador, to this cave. I mean, really, really cool stuff. So it's an awesome season. I certainly hope folks tune in.
Now, did I just read somewhere that you have another series coming out on Travel Channel as well?
Well, we did a pilot for another show, which they aired the pilot for, called Legendary Locations. Whether that'll turn into a series or not, we will see. I'd love to do more over there. It's just that my time is so limited that it's been kind of a tough nut to crack. I don't have much more time to kind of be out in the world. So we're trying to find other stuff to do. Legendary Locations is a cool show that they may air again and could turn into a new series. We'll see.
Legendary Locations, check for it as well. Boy, you whine a lot for a guy that sees 50,000 miles on just this series alone. How can you not have time for more fun things? 50,000 mile multi-continent quest to find the answers to the biggest question: are we alone in the universe? And you went to all over North America, South America, Africa, Europe. And did you find when you're going to these locations, meeting the people, were people in other countries much more open and accessible regarding the possibilities of UFOs and alien contact?
Yeah, I think it kind of depended on the place. I think that in some places they were much more open to it. In other places, it was not as big a thing for them. Like in certain parts of Africa where we went, certainly in Zimbabwe, it was like a major story for them, this sighting that had happened. But, you know, in America, people are kind of less open, I think, in some ways about their experiences, but it's way more on our radar. You know, UFOs and aliens are such a part of our pop culture, too. It's just so much a part of the kind of American pop culture experience that we kind of have aliens in the brain a little bit, and in some parts of the world they just don't. But in other parts of the world, like in Chile, they're much more open about it. You know, they literally have a government agency tasked with investigating UFO reports. So that's, you know, we can't say that. So a lot more open in some places, yeah.
Well, we did at some point. Project Blue Book and a few of the other investigative teams, but they've shut it down now.
They shut it down, yeah.
I'm curious, when you did this as well, now one of the big bones of contention in the UFO world and investigators, they always say, you know, the U.S. government needs to declassify and come out with disclosure. France has done it, Canada's done it, England and Germany have done it, Russia's even done it. But I've not seen one really compelling piece of quote-unquote evidence from any of them. I've seen a lot of redacted comments and generalizations. Were you able to uncover anything from these multitudes of documents that have been released from these governments that you found to be something really, the smoking gun?
No. And I think that that's a big part of this, of the story of UFOs, is that there are a lot of people who see kind of conspiracies in every corner, but I don't think that there is a smoking gun out there yet. Again, a conspiracy theorist would say, well, that's because it's classified and it's hidden. But of all the stuff that's been released in other countries, I didn't see anything that was so incontrovertible that I felt like it really swayed the argument for me.
I'm curious, I know you don't want to give too much away about what's coming up on this and going through, but were you said there was so much to cover and so many things you couldn't get to. You know, talking about some more of the compelling stories that have been out there, the story from Chicago from, about 10 years ago, where something was seen over the skies of O'Hare Field. They shut it down. They grounded all flights. And, I mean, that was a pretty big news story. Did you cover any of that?
That we do cover in the after show. In the second or third episode. It's a really cool thing, and there's also great audio of it that we play, which are these air traffic controllers talking about how, over one of the gates at O'Hare, people reported seeing a UFO, and the chatter is actually really funny between the air traffic controllers because they're like, "Wait, what?" And they're trying to make sure they're hearing this correctly. But it's really compelling because again, these are people who day in, day out, all they do, pilots and air traffic controllers, all they do is deal with airspace. And so for one of them to come forward and say, we're seeing a disc-shaped object floating above, one of the Charlie gates at O'Hare is crazy, is really, really compelling.
See, now, I didn't know that there was audio out there that was ever released. That, to me, is amazing. And you play some of that.
There's
wow.
really interesting audio.
Well, now, is this audio that was officially released to you, or was this some radio nerd that was scanning and caught it on recording?
No, it's been officially released now, and it's really just them trying to kind of, talk between the tower and the air traffic controllers, and you can hear their confusion as they say, various people have reported this. The United Mechanics specifically reported it, and they all are kind of in disbelief as they talk to each other about it. It's really cool.
So now you're hearing more and more of these stories, Gates. I mean, and being a skeptical observer and an interested party in this, when you start hearing that from O'Hare Field and people whose job it is to work on airlines, and they're saying there is something over here that we can't explain, we don't understand this, and they're shutting down. And this isn't Milwaukee Airport. This isn't Podunk Junction, Iowa. This is Chicago O'Hare Airport, one of the most busy airports in the world, and they are shutting it down. Does that really start to shake your paradigm towards the possibilities of this?
Totally. And look, there's a lot of things that we saw that did that to me. There's a lot of evidence out there that stops me in my tracks and makes me go, okay, I want to be skeptical. What's the explanation for this? And in some cases, you just come up empty and you go, I do not have an explanation for this. And that's why I love this topic, is that, there are people out there who say, this is crazy. There's no way I believe in this stuff. These stories are nuts. And then you go, okay, well, what about life in the universe? Do you think that there could be life on other worlds, especially considering that most astronomers and deep space scientists now kind of believe that there is? And they go, well, yeah, maybe. And then you go, well, okay, so you do think that there's alien life out there. So, it's like if you believe in one, maybe you can get to the other. And so that's, for me, the big question is, it's like, okay, if there is alien life out in the universe, maybe it has been here. And it's when you meet those people like Travis Walton or these kids that I met at the aerial school in Zimbabwe, those are the people that really stop you and make you think about, wait, what do I believe? Because I believe that this guy believes. I believe this person has been through something. So how do I explain that away? And when you can't explain it away, that's when it gets, that's when it gets interesting.
I'm guessing the series is going to do really well. Your regular TV series does well enough that you're about to launch into your 4th season on the show. Is there enough to cover doing another 4-part season on this next year?
Oh, I could have done a whole season. I could have done 20 episodes on this. I mean,
really?
For me, yeah. I mean, for me, part of the kind of initial frustration in making the show was all the stuff that we weren't going to be able to cover. All of the great eyewitness stories that we just couldn't get to, and there's a million pieces of cool video evidence out there. And looking at classified information and going to even more countries and hearing their stories. And, there's so much that could be done on this topic. It's just such a neat field, and there's so many passionate people out there, and there's a lot of nutcases out there. And that's something that we didn't really cover on this special, was like talking to people that were hoaxers or totally out there cranks, because we really wanted this special to feel a little more grounded, but also kind of inspirational in a way. Like we really wanted to look at scientists that were doing really cool work around the world in this space, and also eyewitnesses that were really credible, interesting people. But, there's really interesting stories to be told on the hoaxer lunatic side of this as well. I mean, those stories are still really interesting. So I think there's a huge well here that could certainly be mined. I mean, I wish I had a whole season to devote to this. It's really, really fun stuff.
And I apologize, Josh, watching all the shows and documentaries I have, they all start to blend together a little bit in the overall spectrum of my limited brain. there is a story out of, I want to say it was Russia, where there were like four or five campers that were found half naked in a tree, frozen, and stuff like that. Have you ever covered that on any of your series?
So it's a really interesting you bring that up. It's called the Dilatov Pass incident.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
It's a great and tragic story. I mean, it is a really scary story about these. They were students, really. They were kind of hikers and outdoors people, and they went. This was quite a while ago. This was, I want to say, it was like in the. Well, I'm going to get the year wrong. 50s, maybe. They went off for the weekend. They had time off from school. They went hiking. They never came back. The authorities went looking for them and found their campsite and found them all dead. And they were the scene around their campsite was really mysterious. It looked as though they had broken out of their tents from the inside, sort of clawed their way out of these tents as though they were fleeing something.
Right. February 2nd, 1959. I'll just make that mention for everybody.
59, there we go.
Yeah.
Like they were fleeing something. Many of them were half-dressed. They had really strange injuries. A really gruesome, ghastly kind of scene. And they were scattered all around this campsite. And there were all sorts of different theories put forward as to what it could have been, everything from extraterrestrial to they encountered some government experiment to kind of the Russian Bigfoot, you name it. A buddy of mine, a guy named Donnie Eicher, wrote a book on this called Dead Mountain. And if you're listening and you are interested in pick up his book, it's fascinating. He went out there and retraced part of their trip and wrote a really, really interesting book, a really comprehensive book on the story. It also shows some of their photographs. They had a film camera with them and some really spooky photos. We've wanted to tackle this as a topic. It was too difficult to tackle for this special because of how remote it was. We've thought about doing a standalone episode on it, and it's on our bulletin board with a pin in it, and it's something that it's a story that's always interested me. So we haven't done it yet, but I would say stay tuned. It's certainly something I think that we recognize as a really interesting story.
And we'll put up a link to that book. As a matter of fact, if you go to darknessradio.com and click on the Darchives page, or I'm sorry, not Darchives, but under the Killer Deals page, you'll be able to find our Amazon page. We've got all kinds of cool hand-picked items just for you. A lot of the books that you hear from our authors, DVDs, movies, some really cool apparel and fun wear that you can find on there, ghost hunting equipment, Bigfoot hunting equipment, and so on. So you can go check it out. Just go to darknessradio.com and click on our Killer Deals link there, and you'll find all of this. And I'll make sure that we have the Dead Mountain, the untold true story of the Dyatlov Pass incident book available there for you to check out for yourself. Josh, I know you got to get going here. You've got your own expeditions to continue with. The series wraps up. Today's the second episode. There's 2 more episodes to come. Plus, you've got the debriefing episodes. So you've got actually a total of 8 hours worth of great television programming coming up on the Travel Channel. So make sure you check it out now. Expedition Unknown: Hunt for Extraterrestrials. And when does the new series kick off? Season 4?
Kicks off in December.
Kicks off in December, and you said we've got a lot of cool titles and new experiences. Is there still a bucket list project that you really want to go take a look at yet that either crosses into the realm of the woo-woo or mysterious that you still have not had a chance to really crack?
Oh, there's a lot of them, actually. There's a whole bunch of stories we never quite got to tackle on Destination Truth, and that I still sort of dream about. I always wanted to do a kind of Titanic ghost hunt story at the bottom of the Atlantic. There's a couple of really creepy remote islands in the world I've always wanted to travel to that I haven't made it to yet, that have really interesting kind of haunted kind of / Bermuda Triangle-y kind of vibe to them. Man, there's so many. I love all the Yeti stuff, and there's so many other countries that have interesting reports of mystery primates. For me, when I started this, I thought, man, I wonder how long I could do this before I run out of weird things to investigate. Now I realize that list just gets longer and longer. There's so much cool stuff out there.
Hey, speaking of weird stuff and creepy islands, first of all, Cult of Chucky is now out on DVD. It just came out last week, DVD and Blu-ray. I've got 5 copies right now available for the first 5 people to email me, Cult of Chucky, Dave@darknessradio.com, and include your name, your address, and phone number, and we will get out a copy of Chucky, the Cult of Chucky, which is the newest rendition. And Andy's back from the first 2 Child's Play movies. Alex Vincent is back reprising his role as Andy, and this is the newest chapter in the story of Chucky. But before we go out, because people are so freaked out by doll stories, tell me a little bit about your visit when you were with Destination Truth to the Island of the Dolls. You guys had some really kind of weird experiences there. Now that you kind of look back at it, would you like to tackle that? And would you ever go back just solely on your own, a one-man expedition to that Island of the Dolls?
No way.
Really?
That place is so freaky. Alone? No. That place is so freaky. For anyone who doesn't know it, Google it. Google Island of the Dolls, and it is like pure nightmare fuel. Just these the Hollywood designed dolls, with spiders crawling out of their eye sockets and cobwebs all over them. It's just so scary. It's ridiculous. It's this island in Mexico City, in the old canals of Mexico City, which used to be part of the Aztec capital. There's this little island called the Island of the Dolls, and this caretaker started hanging up dolls on this island and letting them sort of decay. And it has this very scary history about a girl who drowned out there, and we went out there for the night, and it was non-stop crazy. There's this old shack out there, and we put our sound guy in there for a while, and something fell and moved. He came running out of this shack. He had a camera, sort of a look-back camera attached to him. He smashed that into a million pieces on his way out the door. The whole place was just totally freaky, and it was some combination of us all just being freaked out by being there, and the place itself having a really bad vibe. So I'd go back. I don't know about on my own. That would be a challenge for me, I think. You
captured one of the greatest, most iconic scenes from a scary paranormal show ever on that island. And just go look up on YouTube, folks. Yeah, go look up on YouTube, Josh Gates, Island of the Dolls. And Josh makes some comment, flipping. He's, being Josh and tongue-in-cheek, having a little bit of fun with it. And he's like, if one of these dolls, if their eyes open, I'm going to freak out. And on a trigger, the doll's head next to you, the eyes pop open. Dude, how much did that freak you out?
It was I think I even said it in the moment. I was like, that's it. Good night. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Somebody said to me, oh, you guys faked that. It's like, listen, pal, I work for the Sci-Fi Channel. We didn't have the budget to run a wire through a doll on that show. Believe me.
All right.
I literally almost jumped out of my clothes. I was like, get me off of this island.
That's right. So remember, Cult of Chucky. Chucky returns to terrorize his human victim, Nika. Meanwhile, the killer doll has some scores to settle with old enemies, all with the help of his former wife. Cult of Chucky is out on Blu-ray and DVD as of last week, and the first 5 people to email me right now at Dave@darknessradio.com. I'll get you a copy of those. Make sure to include your name, your full address, and your phone number. And make sure in the subject line it says Cult of Chucky, only the first 5. But don't hesitate, folks, because somebody might just sit back and go, I won't respond because there's going to be too many. You might still be within the first 5. So let me go ahead and get those emails from you, and I'll give away to the first 5 that respond today. Josh Gates, his new mini-series is on the air right now. As a matter of fact, today is the 2nd episode, Expedition Unknown, Hunt for Extraterrestrials. And then stay tuned right after that for the debriefing episode, an additional hour behind-the-scenes footage, looks at things that didn't make it on the episodes, and some explanations towards some of the things that they did see, and some unique perspectives from people that he's able to interview and UFO experts and so on. So check it out. Set it on your DVR right now. Began last week and it runs through the month of October. His new series, Series 4 of Expedition Unknown, begins in December. Josh, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. Congratulations on your new impending fatherhood and to your son Owen and your lovely wife, and thank you for spending a little time with us here today.
Always a pleasure, Dave. I look forward to seeing you out there in the weird, wild world.
We will see you again real soon. And you guys all be safe, be kind, love one another. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.